If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, if you plan to lead a group of people around by the nose for the long haul, then you absolutely must make them into accomplices in their own oppression. That's how you get people to dial themselves in to be slaves for the long term. So what that means is you're going to have to do a lot of their thinking for them, or rather get them to accept you doing their thinking for them. But the reality is, even if you do get that group of people to be bamboozled into seeing their oppressors as somehow being the image of their savior, sooner or later that game runs thin. Sooner or later there's going to be just enough of them who start saying, you know what, we ain't going for the okie doke. Why is it that you're trying to get us to believe that the very person holding the whip is somehow supposed to be our saving grace of some sort? So that game runs dry. But the one that almost never runs out is if you can get a few dirty, backstabbing, no good bootlicks to go ahead and sell the soap for whomever the oppressor class happens to be. If you can go ahead and get some of the oppressed people's own to go all in for the bad guys, why, you can undermine and derange the internal politics of that group in perpetuity. And this is not new at all. It's actually a quite old strategy. I told you about how when the Romans invaded Britain, they divided the island up into what were slave provinces and quote-unquote free provinces. Well, apparently it didn't take the governor of Britannia long to figure out that those good Caucasians up there didn't work very hard. So that being the case, he had to take a couple of those free provinces and declare them slave provinces just so he could get something resembling product coming out of Britain. And that's where the legend of Boudica came from. Boudica's family threw in their lot with the Romans. They were Roman collaborators. Well, the Roman governor wanted to make sure that the plebes understood that he wasn't going to be taking any resistance from anyone. And so, to prove that this man should not have anyone put anything past him, he went and got Boudica and her daughters because they came from a prominent family. And he had Boudica stripped naked along with their daughters, had them raped in the town square, beat Boudica with a scourge, that's a whip with multiple tails. And after that, told the men of this British village, see what happened to her, and she's one of our buddies. So if we do this to one of our friends, what do you think we'll do to you? Of course, Boudica decided she wasn't taking that one lying down, so she used what influence she had left, and she rallied the people to rise up against the Romans. And the Romans had a couple of bloody noses that they took from it, at least as far as the Roman civilians and the well-to-do who were there. A couple of them got killed, but in the end, the Romans put the rebellion down. And a similar dynamic worked in the case of Spartacus. Spartacus fought a good fight, but ultimately got defeated. See, the thing to remember is the Romans understood the necessity to make sure that tales of the uprisings got out and about. Why? Because they wanted to make the point, yeah, there were these people who thought that they were going to change things. But we put down those rebellions. See, the Romans told you about Boudica. The Romans told you about Spartacus. But what they didn't tell you about were the Vandals and the Visigoths, the individuals who overthrew the Roman Empire, at least the Western Roman Empire. The Romans don't tell any tales about them. Because, of course, that propaganda simply wouldn't do. But the Romans understood the necessity of being able to take individuals and raise them up so that the oppressed would see them, but only if it served the interest of the Romans. And this is what the Europeans had learned from the Romans. They would use the exact same trick. Oh yeah, the French will tell you about Toussaint Louverture. That's because they were able to capture him in the end. They don't say anything about Jean-Jacques Dessalines, because they don't want to be talking about a black man who overthrew them. That simply wouldn't serve their interests. And of course, when it comes to the United States, they'll go ahead and they'll tell you about stories like John Henry. Yeah, John Henry, who literally worked himself to death for white folks. They like that idea. Well, if you outperform a white person, you're going to die in the end. That's propaganda. But it's also part of their MO, a relentless, non-stop flood of anti-black vitriol and hate. They make it a point that whenever they're talking about a black person, they're always running black people into the ground. And that's because they know that there's a certain number of black folks who will just be so desperate and desirous for these good white folks to say something complimentary about a black person that the first time the white media actually presents a story about a black person or has them on air and isn't running them into the ground or is actually saying something halfway complimentary about them, black folks will just jump all over that and go, oh, we're good. Finally, someone who these good white supremacists approve of. And so you get individuals like Barack Obama. You get individuals like Stacey Abrams. You get people like Andrew Gillum. And you get people like Kamala Harris. You get individuals who the white media puts on a pedestal. The way the white media talked about Kamala Harris, you would think that she served the second course of the Last Supper. And Barack Obama, you'd have sworn that dude walked on water. How did he get from Hawaii to the mainland? He walked across the Pacific Ocean. Barack Obama walked on water. That's what they always do. Andrew Gillum, one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party. He's so respected by the black community. See, that's the thing. They like to go ahead and speak for you because they don't dare let you speak for yourself because they're terrified of what you will say. And the reason why the white media does that is because up until recent years, there had not been a critical mass of black people speaking in one voice saying, nah, these people don't represent us. That's the reason why you got the white media trying to pick and choose who the winners are going to be. Pick and choose who your representatives and your spokespeople are going to be. Black culture, in too many cases, has failed to speak for itself, so we've created a vacuum. We've allowed this huge void that white supremacy has spent over 150 years trying to fill with their fakers, frauds, phonies, fools, sellouts, suck-ups, and simps. Why is it that so many of the black misleadership class have not done a damn thing for black people? It's because we didn't select them. We didn't choose them. You think about who the city council people or who the county commissioners are, your state representatives. They were chosen by the dominant society. They were chosen by well-heeled, well-moneyed interests from the oppressor class. They damn sure weren't chosen by you. And that's the reason why they don't do anything for you and they work against your interests. They're bootlicks. They are sock puppets for white supremacy, and they know that. Their job is not to do anything for you. Their job is to get you to sit on your hands while white supremacy is allowed to go about oppressing you, or at the very least make sure that you do not organize a resistance against them. That's the job of these clowns. And in the end, some of y'all have been so silly as to actually think that these guys are some sort of heroes of yours, and you try to defend them and stick up for them. White supremacy knows all too well the value of taking a bootlick and putting them on a pedestal. It's all part of the plan. Go ahead and put this person on a pedestal. As Malcolm said, go ahead and build them up. Make them prominent. Make it where you can see them. Praise them. Give them a lot of airtime on the television, on radio. Make sure you give them some favorable write-ups in the print publications. Oh, this guy's the belle of the ball. And the dumb bootlick will begin to believe it themselves, but that's okay. White supremacy understands the higher they fly, the more devastating the crash when white supremacy takes them down. And that's, of course, what always happens. That's part of the fun, too. Go ahead and give them a pedestal. Make the pedestal high. Make it 1,000,000 feet high. That way, when you knock that pedestal out from under them, the fall will be tremendous. It's all a game to white supremacy. Andrew Gillum, they were giving all of this insincere praise, gassing up some of your heads. Oh, Andrew Gillum, he gonna be the next big thing. And then he turns up in a hotel room with some male prostitutes face down in his own vomit. And, well, the white media's like, hey, covering this part will be fun too. It happened a little bit sooner than we expected, but, let's just go ahead and make this guy grist for the mill for a couple of news cycles and then move on. There's a new bootlick who'll come crawling every minute. There's no need for the white media to bring any of their white anchors or any of their white personalities to come deceive black people. There's no need for the Democrats to bring in Joe Biden to sell the soap for why it is that you should vote against black empowerment and instead put a man in the White House, reward him for his 40 plus years of anti-black vitriol and hate spewed from the floor of the United States Senate. Why should he do it himself? They can always get some bootlick to do it, and they know that there's black folks gullible enough to go along with it. When a bootlick can be accepted by the very people who that bootlick is clearly working to undermine, that's when you know that these people are basically accomplices in their own oppression. White supremacy's got you by the throat, willingly, when they can convince you to worship, hero worship, the very flunkies and backstabbers that they've insinuated among you. The white media presents people to us who they want us to think of as our saviors. The white media puts them on a pedestal, praises them, tells us that they're the next big thing, and because we're so used to the white media doing nothing but running black people into the ground full time and demonizing us constantly, some of us are either caught off guard or just so pathetically desirous to see a black person who the white media is not attacking. And oh God, we just lose our minds if they praise some black person. We fall for the con game. We're ripe for a fall, too many of us. But these people who they want us to look up to are nothing more than false idols meant for us to worship them, try to live vicariously through them. We're going to call ourselves thinking because we cannot bask in the glow of some of these good white supremacists at Network ABC or Democratic or Republican Party XYZ. Instead, we are reduced to trying to live vicariously through Barack Obama, trying to live vicariously through the phony baloney sorority sister girl routine of Kamala Harris. We're just trying to live vicariously through these fools, because that's what you do when you give up. When you have already just resigned yourself to having nothing and doing nothing and being nothing, you try to live through somebody else, even if it's all a sham, even if you know it's a fraud, you play along with it anyway. And you condition and teach your children to do the same. You try to teach them that the flunkies and bootlicks for white supremacy who your enemy put in front of you, you teach your children to actually have respect for a clown like Stacey Abrams. You're going to teach your children to respect an utter fool like Bobby Rush. These white supremacists know that in many cases, not in all, because some of us have just decided we're never going to think for ourselves, but in many cases, you just can't get black folks to eat out of the hand of Massa anymore. So you go ahead and you get one of Massa's bootlicks, and a lot of black folks will give themselves permission to eat out of the hand of some bootlick. That's not a victimless crime. I told you about Byron Allen and how he's going about getting these white media companies to guilt trip him some more media stations so that he can go ahead and make sure that he and his white wife are taken care of. You had some fools, the A-Dunce crowd, they had a lot of y'all going right along with it. You had me, you had Jason, you had Tariq, you had Judge Joe Brown, and a number of others telling you this guy's running game. This is just a little hustle that he does. He does this all the time. He's done this before. He will do it again. This is the Byron Allen hustle. Oh, but some of y'all have convinced yourselves that Mushmouth and Squarejaw were somehow telling the truth. And if you didn't stick up for Byron Allen so he could go ahead and have this little hustle of his, why, the sky was going to fall. They'd be slapping black folks right back in chains. And if Byron Allen wins, why, it was going to be a new day for black folks. Well, Byron Allen got his latest lawsuit lottery settlement with one of these white media companies. His little hustle that he's been running, he yet again was able to go ahead and twist their arms and get them to throw him a couple of tokens, a couple of crumbs to get him to go away. Because that's the little hustle that he's running. And who has this benefited? He's been doing this for years now. It's never benefited anyone other than him. Who is it benefiting? Him? You see, Squarejaw and Mushmouth thought to themselves that they were going to get a job from Allen. God knows they both could use one. But as soon as I guess they eventually figured out, and some of their listeners, the low information types, figured out, oh, Byron Allen, he's just running game. Next thing you know, those two decided to drop it after all the water that they carried for him. But my point is, why was it that so many people willfully chose not to see through this? Byron Allen has never done a damn thing for anyone other than Byron Allen. We already told you that if this fool has nothing to do with the black grassroots, this is somebody who we never mentioned favorably, that ought to tell you something. You see, when it comes to B1, when it comes to the black empowerment grassroots, we recognize our own. We know our own. We don't hero worship anyone. That's the reason why there's no leader. The ideology is the leader. We don't put any person on a pedestal. You never hear me saying, y'all need to learn to respect me. We don't play that game. The code is the leader. The ideology is the leader. The code is what we put on a pedestal, not a person. Because a lot of y'all are just too dang young to remember, but there was a time when another black man was calling himself trying to get his hands on some media real estate, Bill Cosby. Well, we all know what became of that. But when you see the white media reporting about Byron Allen taking these white media companies to court, and the white media is not trashing him or demonizing him, hell, I would think that they would at least just out of desperation bring up that, hey, didn't Byron Allen try to get the rights to buy the rights to Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation? Just, we can dirty him up by association, but they don't. Now, why would the white media not be bothered by a black man calling himself getting his hands on TV stations and such? Well, because Byron Allen has already made it clear he's not going to cause them any trouble. His job is to be a safe, rebellious Negro. Oh, the white media reports on him as if, oh, he's shaking things up and he's doing this, that. What the hell's he got to show for it? What, does he have the Weather Channel? Is that, I forget what it is he's supposed to have because I don't give a damn. Though I do know that he happens to have the griot, that much I do know. And the griot has been a very vigorous champion of LGBT whatever. Meanwhile, when it comes to reparations, well, I guess Byron Allen figures that his buddy Kamala Harris may not like that. So one little jostling that a reporter gave from his website, I'm willing to bet you completely and thoroughly unauthorized. Guess Allen decided, well, I've done enough to cover my butt, and I can always point to that. You see, he's one and done, and his job is done, he feels. And there are some of y'all who think that that gives him cover, but it doesn't. This is what happens when you have a group of people who refuse to choose their champions for themselves. You sit back and wait to see who the white media is going to present to you, because too many of us don't think that a black person has legitimacy unless the white media is out there pretending to sing their praises. If the white media gives them some praise, oh, that's good, that's good. Now you got real legitimacy because of who it is who is talking about you. And until this mental handicap is done away with, black people are never going to come into our own, and that's the reason for the black media. We're the ones whose job it is to let you know, hey, that ain't the business. That is not okay. You don't let any propped up phonies like Square Jaw and Mushmouth come along and telling you, I'm the producer. Because while we're on the subject, the reason that clowns like Mushmouth were able to get out there and just tell these bald-faced lies on the behalf of Byron Allen is because of the fact that that's what lawyers do. See, most politicians have a law degree. And part of what's taught in law is how to frame a particular argument and to do it in a way where you try to convince people that the sky is falling. The world's going to end unless the jury gives a verdict your way, while it will be the end of the world. Politicians, of course, take these lawyers' tricks and do the exact same thing to push legislation that they want. Oh, if you don't support Byron Allen, if he loses this lawsuit, why, this is going to knock us back 150 years. It's going to be the end of black folks. Oh, it's going to be Jim Crow, as if we haven't had that. Talking about things as if they've changed in 150 years. Like, man, what, are we in some sort of utopia now? God, if this is a utopia, I'd hate to see hell. What happened? Byron Allen got what he wanted, not a damn thing changed. Oh, we're going to be just done in if Byron Allen doesn't win this lawsuit. And instead of black people exercising their brains and asking, is that true? Because if you had asked that question, you would have found the only thing true is that these two magpies said it. That's the only thing that was true. It's true that they said it. It ain't true it was going to happen. But a lot of black folks chose to be taken in by that, and a lot of black folks chose to be taken in by Jim Crow Joe, without realizing that the way to have leverage is you got to make sure that you have something that the other party wants. The second that you surrender that, you have also surrendered your leverage. That should have been the lesson of the 2020 election. I posted on my Twitter page today that the Washington Post is allowing themselves to be basically an open bulletin board for all of these GOP pundits who are saying, you guys need to, the Republican voters need to join Biden. They just came out and said it in the Washington Post. Came right out and said it. An op-ed by a guy named Max Boot, headline, "The GOP can't be saved. Center-right voters need to become Biden Republicans." You see, months and months ago, I was telling you about how it was Rahm Emanuel, Barack Obama's former chief of staff and the former corrupt mayor of Chicago, who tried to cover up the murder of Laquan McDonald. He was talking about how Joe Biden needed to have Biden Republicans need to be reaching out to those center-right Republicans who would agree with Biden on social issues, though they may vary with him on economic ones. Though, of course, what goes unsaid is those center-right people, they are aligned with the Republicans when it comes to black folks. That's always going to be the main bedrock issue. That's going to be the one voter issue that's going to make or break an election for these people, whether or not, where do you stand on the issue of black folks? And of course, that's the reason why Biden made it a point where we got to keep black folks at arm's length. Yes, so the kind of talk that you heard coming out of the mouth of Rahm Emanuel, the exact same words, Biden Republicans, now you're hearing it out of the mouth of these GOP pundits. What does that tell you? The Democratic and Republican parties are nothing more than the right and left, at least rhetorical right and left political arms attached to the same white supremacist body politic. They both work for the exact same master and for the exact same reasons. One represents the blatant establishment viewpoint, and the other one pretends to be opposition, their controlled opposition, meant to get you to sit on their hands while they pretend like they're going to do something for you. It's the oldest trick in the book. How do you guarantee that you win a war? By controlling both sides. That's how you guarantee that you win a war. See, the Democrats and the Republicans, while they pretend, oh, what's going to become of the GOP? Oh, they're going to be in the political wilderness forever. Look, the issue is what's going to be done to maintain the racial pecking order in America. And if you're going to maintain any structure, you better make sure the foundation is solid. That means that black folks have to be kept at the bottom no matter what. So the Republicans, these GOP pundits, they have the luxury of pretending that, oh, we need Biden Republicans because the GOP can't be saved. This ain't about saving the freaking GOP. This is about maintaining white supremacy. That's what it's always been about. What Republican would be in their right mind would be saying you need to support Biden? No, it's a matter of Biden was able to get these dumb Negroes to support him, but the problem is that black media just keeps on agitating. They just keep on saying we're going to have our power. We will force the system to bend to our will. We're not begging. We're not pleading. We're going to break them. These GOP pundits know that no matter what Biden may say when it comes to issues on the economy or the environment or guns, Biden has also made it very clear he ain't doing a damn thing for black people. So that being the case, these Republicans understand that on the issue that truly matters, they have the luxury of saying, well, we don't like some of the tone that some of you Donald Trump devotees strike. That doesn't necessarily please us, and we don't think that it's particularly helpful. And besides, Joe Biden, his support is already cracking. The black folks are already breaking bad on him. Now that Donald Trump is gone, we got to shore up Joe Biden's support. So we need some of you guys to take one for the team and become Biden Republicans. Because Biden's solid on the issue that really matters, on the issue that black people should not be expecting to get anything from an administration or government that he's the head of. The central core policy of white supremacy is going to be maintained, so we can go ahead and pretend to make a big deal out of tone policing this or that person or this or that constituency. We can go ahead and pretend as if we're making changes when the truth is we're not doing anything at all. It's like that sham going on in Minneapolis right now. They're trying to make a big deal out of, the Minneapolis PD, they're saying that Derek Chauvin didn't have to do George Floyd like that. See, the people said we're going to abolish the police altogether. So the police are trying to make some last-ditch, half-baked effort to save themselves. That's what this is about. This is just a giant PR stunt to try to regain confidence with the people or to justify their existence, because the people have already said we're going to go ahead and pull the pin on having you guys closed down. So now they have to make a pretend as if, we're against police brutality. All of a sudden, yeah, they're against police brutality until next Tuesday. Until the next time the police murder an unarmed black person. It's all a sham, all a fraud. It's about white supremacy telling you who you should respect and seeing whether or not you're dumb enough to go for the okie doke. Telling you that you should do thus and so because Beyonce's in favor of it, or LeBron's in favor of it, or Barack Obama put his putrid little asinine seal of approval on it when he ripped his lips away from whatever man that he's been smooching on. And then you see the white media trying to make a thing out of Stacey Abrams. So you see, it doesn't matter if it's MSNBC or MTV. The white media runs the exact same playbook, and the reason that they run it is because we got so many black people who refuse to think for themselves. Yes, it is important and crucial that you have a black media. Yes, it is important and crucial that you listen to what it is that we say. But for the most part, a lot of these fools, these guys are completely and thoroughly blatantly obvious. You shouldn't need anybody to point out the obvious to you. It's real simple. If you see the white media putting some black person on and they're not running them into the ground and not trashing them, then that's because white supremacy has already vetted them and is like, okay, this Negro here, he's going to serve our interests. He's going to serve our purposes. I mean, it really is like that. The more pressure that we put on them, the more blatant that they have to be with it. 2 years ago, MSNBC had one of their alleged black-targeted little sideshows saying that if you want to know who a Russian bot is online, look for people who are talking about reparations or something like that. People who are talking about black people who are descended from American slaves as being some sort of separate ethnic group. People talking like that, that's Russian bot talk. That's what they were saying 2 years ago. And today what they're saying is, well, the Democrats, reparations is important, especially for illegal aliens and especially for LGBTs. Yeah, now they're talking differently about it. Their rhetoric changes depending on which way the political winds are blowing. But we got to understand that we're supposed to be the ones driving that particular trend, not waiting to see who the white media is going to present to us that we can hitch our wagon to their star. That doesn't work. People and groups need heroes. There's nothing wrong with having an individual who you can look at and say, man, this person achieved far and above everyone else. There's nothing wrong with a person who happens to be surpassing all others. There's nothing wrong with looking at individuals who have magnified themselves for great deeds above the mediocre masses. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to call yourself putting somebody on a pedestal because of what they've done, well, as Dr. John Henrik Clarke aptly put it, an accomplishment for who and for what? You got some fool who's calling himself trying to figure out how many white media companies he can hustle his way into ownership stakes in. That's somebody who's doing something only for himself. You expect me to salute that? This guy's just basically engaged in one gigantic vanity project, especially when he's also made it a point to work against our interest on too many occasions. Nah, man, I ain't saluting that. No, I need the tried and true. That's who I'm going to respect. That's who I'm going to look up to. And that's what you need to look up to as well. If we are to have heroes, if we are to have those who we hold up in high esteem, then it must only be the people who we have chosen. You'll know if they're on the side of the good guys or not because the white media will be running them into the ground. That's how you know. White media is doing a puff piece. They're trying to give instant status to some bootlick because that's how you do it. You got to give them instant status. We'll go ahead and give them a couple of favorable write-ups. We'll go ahead and make sure that they're covered favorably on MSNBC while Mika Brzezinski talks about them with her arms folded, spitting through her teeth. That old, tired, wrinkled up racist making it clear that she resents every word that her producers are telling her she has to say. Oh, if this is the price of misleading those niggers, it might be too. I may have to tender my resignation. She never acted that hostile when talking about Donald Trump. Even when Donald Trump was talking about the doggone clearly cheap plastic facelifts that she's had. She's never had that kind of hostile body language talking about Trump. Oh, but here she is clearly being told what she has to say about a black militia, and she's got a problem with it. That doesn't mean that this is something that we should co-sign. It's just a matter of you need to understand when somebody's running game on you. Even if it's something that the white supremacists themselves may personally detest, they understand that making it where black people invest in red herrings and individuals who do not have our best interest at heart, getting us to follow behind individuals who they've already got on the take, they'll go ahead and bite their tongues and they'll grin and bear it for that. Or in the case of Mika, the bigot Brzezinski, grimace and bear it. They can do that. They ain't going to like it. But, white supremacy is disciplined, if nothing else. They ain't got to like it, but they just got to do it, and they will. And then when the time inevitably comes to show black folks, you fell for it, then it's too damn late. It matters who we choose to put on a pedestal. It's okay to have heroes. It's okay to have icons. That's important. It's okay to have those you can point to and say, man, so this is what excellence is from our particular group. We have our own homegrown crop of overachievers and those who have excelled. There is nothing wrong with that, so long as you were the ones who chose them and they were working in your interest, or at the very least, long as they weren't working against your interest. I mean, for God's sakes, if we can just go ahead and put the bar on the freaking ground. But who it is that a people or a group chooses to put on a pedestal, that says a lot about the culture of a group. Because they are saying this is what we deem as the highest personification of our ideals, an individual who embodies what it is that we say we stand for. Says a lot about a group when they do that. Says even more about them when they have decided to allow their enemy to choose who those icons are going to be. So next time you see the white media trying to take some Stacey Abrams or some fly-by-night joker who claims that he's on the rah-rah stuff and he's trying to make you believe that you should get behind him, you need to ask some serious questions. Ask some serious questions about who the white media is putting in front of you and why. Because when you make it a habit to call yourself worshiping these false idols that white supremacists put in front of you, what you've also done is to put yourself in the perfect position for them to chop your head off.